Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I want to talk to you about this prophetic war in the Bible, the Magog War. But we're going to compare it to Psalms 83 war. I thought about doing some comparison because I do believe they're both relevant. And we're just going to see what the scripture says. I found it to be very edifying. And one thing I will tell you before we begin is that these prophecies can't come to pass without God showing himself and his power, because he says he's going to do it. And so this is something that Christians should expect. And so I just wanted to take a look at this today. The first thing that we'll look at is the players in the Psalms 83 war. Now, you know, I'm just telling you, I've heard preachers read through scriptures of Psalms 83 and Ezekiel 38 and 39 and Revelation, and they just talk like it's all the same thing. But it's not. There's different players in each one of these wars. None of them are the same war. And they just try to act like it's all Armageddon or something sometimes. But some of them are a little bit more hip to what's going on. I took a lot of these readings from modern versions. This is the Christian Standard Bible. And this is the players in the Psalms 83 war. What we want to look at is what it says about this war. In verse 1, God, do not keep silent, do not be deaf. God, do not be quiet. See how your enemies make an uproar, and those who hate you have acted arrogantly. They devise clever schemes against your people, and they conspire against your treasured ones. Now, I want to first talk about these first two things here, because this is a prophetic psalm. This is something that's going to happen to Israel in the future, with its results also penned by the prophet who wrote this. David penned the psalm. And so he often penned things about Christ and the crucifixion in his psalms. And so the Spirit would come upon him as he was penning these psalms, and they're prophetic. And so I want to talk to you about the clever schemes and the conspiracy. Okay, so Israel's this tiny nation, and so we see that there was this big push for years to free Gaza. And so Israel withdrew from Gaza, and Iran filled it full of terrorists, Hamas. And now there's a big clamor to get Israel out of the West Bank, which is the West Bank of the Jordan, which is in East Jerusalem. And of course the Palestinians have their own government over there, say. And so anywhere Israel can, they put terrorist-funded groups and arm them to attack Israel. And so in Lebanon, which is where Hezbollah is, they started shooting rockets at Israel just as soon as Hamas from Gaza ran over there and killed 1,400 or 1,500 of them and kidnapped a bunch of people. See? And so it's like they got clever schemes that they're doing. This big campaign to free an area and then fill it full of terrorists, and then make plots to go in there and kidnap and rape the people just trying to live there in peace, and kill and murder and burn, cut the heads off of babies. They did all that. And then whenever Israel invades Gaza, they want to talk about all the things they're doing to those poor people. You know, and because they had to level all the buildings because the terrorists were attacking them from it. So they bulldozed everything, so they couldn't shoot anti-tank missiles at them as they came in to get the hostages back and to destroy Hamas. So Israel knows how to invade a country, but now the whole world's turning against them because they've invaded the country. That's a clever scheme right there. That's what that is. That's a clever scheme and a conspiracy. Okay? I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what's going on, because we're going to make this lesson current. And I will make this lesson current by showing you some current headlines. I pulled them off I Googled them and pulled it off the internet yesterday when I was studying. But I want to say this one thing about this before we go any further. It doesn't matter what they're conspiring to do and how they're planning to attack Israel. It's not going to happen till God allows it to happen. Something will always prevent it, and I don't know how long he'll prevent it. But I do know that the players are getting in place, and they're saying they're going to invade Israel and to destroy it as a nation, to take it away from being a nation. And the mentality of these terrorists are they just think they're entitled to each have their own Jew as a slave, a sex slave, or something like that. That's the way they think. They're just entitled to it. See? And there's a tremendous hatred for this people over there. So they're devising clever schemes. They come in, murder a bunch of people, literally burn families with their children, cut the heads off of babies, kidnapped a lot of people and carried them back into their land. And then after they got them in the land and Israel comes to rescue the hostages, the whole world is turning against Israel for doing it. That's a really clever scheme. Okay? And so they know what they're doing. And so David is writing before they ever do it, what they're doing. So they conspired against their treasured ones. And we can say that not because they know Jesus, because they don't. Okay? And they can't be saved without Jesus. And you shouldn't be excited about them sacrificing a red heifer, because that's in the place of Jesus and the rejection of His sacrifice. That's not something you should be supporting or happy about. Some Christians are just really ignorant in this area. And so what the reason why they are the treasured ones is because He has a plan to save a remnant in the end. But He says it'll only be a remnant that'll be saved. And so whatever God has said, He will see to it that Israel will still be in the land when He descends to the Mount of Olives and destroys the incoming armies that are coming against Israel in the final battle. This battle is Psalms 83 is going to fail. Magog is going to fail. And in the end, the Armageddon battle is going to fail. But they're all different players. And we'll show you who the players are. We're not going to study the Armageddon battle today. But in Armageddon, I will just tell you this. It's all the kings of the earth. The four unclean spirits like frogs go out to gather all the kings of the earth against Jerusalem to battle. It's all of them. And so there's just certain players in these wars. And so we can identify these wars by their players. Now, having said that, these are clever schemes. And they say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation so that Israel's name will no longer be remembered. Now, that's really what they're saying. If you listen to what they're saying, they want to remove Israel as a nation. Okay? And so it says, for they have conspired with one mind, and they form alliance against you. So there's this big alliance that is forming against them. And he's going to say who the alliance is. They're the tents of Edom, the Ishmaelites, Moab of the Hagarites, and it's Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia. That's where Gaza is. And with the inhabitants of Tyre, even Assyrians have joined them and lend support to the sons of Lot. So he's naming the lands. And so, today's technology, just Google what are the current places of these lands, and we'll be able to identify all those places. So this is the outcome of the first plot to destroy Israel. This is the Psalms 83. He prophesies in a prayer form, but we know this is going to be answered because they fell. Psalms 83 fails, and Magog forms after Psalms 83. The Magog Wars, what it's often called by preachers. So it says, make them like a tumbleweed, my God, like straw before the wind. As fire burns a forest, as a flame blazes through mountains. So pursue them with your tempest and terrify them with your storm. So he's talking about a supernatural resistance from God against these nations. Cover their faces with shame. So they got this big, long plot and a clever scheme, but when it fails, then they're ashamed because they were not able to do it with all of these forces and some of the biggest countries in the Middle East supporting them. Russia and Iran and Syria and Jordan, everything around them is supporting them in this effort against Israel. And some of them are doing it two-faced, but they're still doing it. So where do you think all those tunnels go? Into Egypt. An ally. Supposed to be an ally, someone that's not involved. All the stuff that got in there came through Egypt. But they're not presenting themselves as the enemy of Israel. Okay? So it says, cover their faces with shame so that they will seek your name, Lord. And let them be put to shame and terrified forever. So that it's the Lord that puts them to shame and terrifies them. And let them perish in disgrace. And may they know that you alone, whose name is the Lord, are the Most High over all the earth. So this is what he is saying. This is a prayer that's going to be answered. It was penned just prophetically, just like the players of this war. And so I Googled it, and WorldNet Daily, it's a reputable news site that is not hostile to Jesus, by the way. It's a conservative news site. And so I just got this from them. I copied it and downloaded it and put it on a slide. So this is the people involved. The tents of Edom, that's the Palestinians in South Jordan. That's where that is. The Ishmaelites is Saudi Arabia. And right at the bottom of that peninsula is Yemen, and that's where all the missiles are hitting all the ships coming in and out of the Red Sea. And they shot things from Yemen at Israel too. Moab, this is also some Palestinians in central Jordan. So this is the area that these nations lived. The Hagarenes, that's just the Egyptians. That's Hagar. And so that's the Ishmael and and Hagar. That's their descendant. That's the descendants of Hagar through Ishmael. Okay, Gilboa, that's Hezbollah, North Lebanon. Okay, that's who's attacking Israel today. Hezbollah is from Lebanon, and Ammon is Palestinians in North Jordan as well. So this is all these parts of Jordan and part of what they're calling Palestine. Okay, and Amalek is Sinai. Okay, that's the peninsula of Sinai, which joins Israel in the south. And Philistine is Gaza. That's where Hamas attacked them from. So they're just noticing that every one of these people, every one of these places, Tyre, well, that's South Lebanon, and then Assyria is Syria and northern Iraq. So just so you remember, whenever after the invasion, after Israel invaded Gaza, Hezbollah missiles started flying from Lebanon into Israel and also over the Golan Heights from Syria. Every one of those places attacked Israel. Every one of them did. Drones flew in over the Golan Heights from Syria. All these places are involved in this war that's going on right now. All of them are. So I just pulled that off, and I'm just showing you that if you were listening at all to what was going on over there, then you would have heard that missiles came from Lebanon and the war in Gaza, and you would have heard about the attacks from Syria. You would have heard about all that. And everybody else just talked and tried to make Israel afraid, but they went on with their invasion. Okay? Now, I want to introduce you to some current events. This is some of the things that I pulled off the internet yesterday. Based upon some things that people were saying, I said I wanted to find it. I want to find a hard copy of it. So this is what Reuters Daily Briefing newsletter said. Iranian-backed Hezbollah started firing at northern Israel a day after the Palestinian group Hamas and their October 7th shock attack in the south of the country. So this is Iranian-backed Hezbollah. That's from Lebanon. Communities 2 miles away from the Lebanese border were hastily evacuated. And Iranian-backed Hezbollah started firing at northern Israel a day after the Palestinian group Hamas October 7th shock attack in the south of the country. And community 2... Okay, I copied and pasted that twice, didn't I? Okay, that's my bad. So it says many of the homes and farms had been destroyed by guided anti-tank missiles launched from within Lebanon. So there's the attack from Lebanon. And the airstrikes, shelling, and rockets have marked the worst fighting on the Israel-Lebanese front in almost 2 decades. Although it has not amounted to a war, it risks of becoming one fast. Just on Monday, an Israeli strike in Damascus, this happened last Monday, because Israel, these Iranian generals that are sitting there in what they're calling a consulate, they're the ones planning these attacks. And these attacks are just proxies, Iran proxies, is all they are. They get all their armaments, not only from Iran, but they're finding armaments from China and Russia among Israel's enemies. They're all in on it. And the Bible just called them out while they're saying they're not in on it. The Bible called them out before they ever secretly started devising these clever plans. There's one reason for wanting to remove Israel. First, it's prophetic. And second is because they hate us. And so they want to destroy any American allies in that side of the world. And in order to get to Israel, which is something that they feel like they have to do spiritually because of their beliefs, then America is under threat. And we'll show you something about that today too. They feel like there's something, they got to do something to take America down to be able to take Israel down because America's supporting Israel. So it says, just on Monday, an Israeli strike in Damascus killed 2 Iranian generals and 5 military advisors, including at least one Hezbollah member. So he's. What do you think the Hezbollah member's doing over there with these five Iranian generals? They are planning, and Hezbollah is just their arm, according to Lebanese sources. So in a high-stakes attack that has drawn an Iranian vow of revenge. So now Iran is saying, we got this reason to attack Israel. So it's not a proxy war anymore. They're saying, we're going to attack Israel now. That's what they're saying. And all Israel did was cut the head off the snake. Because that is what they do. They don't just sit and fight the proxies. They go and attack the places that are causing the problem. And that's the way that Israel deals with threats. And even at this present moment, there is talk of them pulling what they call the Samson option. It says if it looks like they're going to be overwhelmed, they're going to hit all of their enemies with neutron bombs at once. That's one of their exit plans. Just so you know that. Okay, and I'm not saying it'll come to that because I don't know. It looks like to me that the Bible has already spoken what's going to happen here, and God intervenes. So let's look at Ezekiel 38 and 39. We're going to look at the Magog Israel war. Okay, so these are the players in the war against Israel in the Magog war, and so it says in Ezekiel 38 verse 1, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog. And Gog is just the prince of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with the sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and of them handling swords. And so it's like the Lord is saying, when it's time, nothing can happen till He says it's time. They can talk all they want, but just something will delay it, as long as God wants to delay it. But when it's time, He said, I'm going to put a hook in your jaw and drag you to it. I'm going to bring you down. I'm going to bring you down. And he can, and of course, we're talking about a time before tanks and helicopters and jets and all that. So he talks about it in terms of riddles and in terms of ancient armaments. But it's to be noted that how that these horses, today would represent armaments. Everything's horse powered, and so it's like. And Zechariah talked about how that the horses would be smitten with blindness. Well, that's like taking down a GPS satellite, because all the countries use American Air Force GPS to guide their missiles. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but they do that. It's like GPS is for every country to use. It's just up there, and that's just the nature of it. Even though the American Air Force may have put that satellite up there, our enemies will use it to guide their missiles. And so it's just there for the using. And so when these horses are smitten with blindness, that stuff comes down. And so there's an effort today to try to say, what are we going to do if there's no GPS in a major war? And they're trying to install artificial intelligence on all armaments to be able to have the same kind of warfare without GPS. This is just one of the things that is going on in the world today. And so he goes on to name more nations that are involved in this Magog war: Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya. And Gomer and his bands, and Togarmah of the north quarters, and his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, and thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard to them. So this is what the Lord's challenge to Gog. He said, you better take care of your people. I'm bringing you down, but the Lord's going to destroy him. He says, because he has raised himself up against the Most High. How can Putin go through life and not know all this stuff? I can tell you right now that Netanyahu has a team studying this. And that's why he's so bold. He may not know Jesus, but he believes what the prophets have said. And that's why he's doing what he's doing. He's got a team studying these scriptures to say what's going to happen. And they believe that the scripture is going to be fulfilled. Okay? And so this is the modern names of the players. Rosh is Russia. Magog is Central Asia and Russia. That's part of the land of Russia too. Meshech is Turkey. Tubal is also part of Turkey and some of Russia and some of Iran. Persia, of course, is Iran. They only changed the name in 1935 from Persia to Iran. And Ethiopia, that's the Sudan. And there are African troops already fighting with Russians in Ukraine. Already. That's already a thing. That they're coming over to help Russia. Put is Libya. Gomer is also part of Turkey, as is Beth Togarmah. If I'm saying that right, probably not. And he says many peoples with you. That would just be other Islamic nations that are maybe left over from that Psalms 83 that just pour into this effort to try to destroy Israel. And so as I don't know how many, since October the 7th has been the invasion, right? So we're, a good 6 months into the war. So what's going on now? This is another introduction into the world events 6 months into the Psalms 83 war. This is from the Jerusalem Post, and it's titled "A Message to Israel?" ? Russia deploys more forces in the Syrians' Golan Heights. So Golan Heights is the high ground that Israel seized from Syria the last time they attacked them. And so they have some of the mountains, and Syria has some of the mountains. And this article is saying Russia has moved to those mountains on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, opposing Israel's defense force. What are they doing there? The Bible said they were coming. That's why they're there. There's a hook in the jaw, bringing them to it. Now they're claiming to be a police force to keep the peace. Clever schemes. But all of those nations together agree. And if you listen to Russia's allies, they're telling you what they're going to do. They're going to take away Israel from being a nation, destroy it, wipe it off the map. That's what they're saying they're going to do. And so it says, according to, let's see, did we finish reading that? Russia's defense minister announced on Wednesday it had deployed additional forces in the Syrian-controlled areas of the Golan Heights, where Israel had allegedly struck at an increasing rate over the past few months. And so these forces, as they build up on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, Israel blows them up. Every time there's a gathering over there, they blow them up. Why do they do that? Because they know they're going to invade. So every time they start to build up armament over there, they blow it up. Okay, that's why they're doing it. According to Russia, military posts belonging to the Syrian military are located below the Russian observation posts set up to monitor possible provocations. Russia condemned the Israeli strike in Syria. That's where they killed the 4 generals last Monday and the Hezbollah leader. Russia's decision to make their presence in the Golan Heights comes after Moscow condemned a strike blamed on Israel targeting the Iranian consulate in Syria. Moscow called on the Jewish state to cease such completely unacceptable actions and has requested a meeting with the UN Security Council regarding the strike. So you see the way they're talking? They're playing politics to get the whole world against Israel. They're planning Israel's destruction. 4 Iranian generals are talking to Hezbollah and supporting their effort to shoot missiles into Israel every day. And suddenly this is completely unacceptable actions when they blow the head off the snake. It's just all cleverly devised schemes that are working. The whole world is turning against Israel because of the way they're playing their hand. So Putin, who has done worse things to Ukraine, is now acting like, he's a big hero policeman in the area trying to keep calm. And as if he's not doing just as bad over there in Ukraine. So just know, this strike was on the head of the snake that was planning the kidnap, rape, and murder of Jews around the world. Just so you know that. It's not just for Israel. It will come here, and it has come here to some degree. People that are listening to this propaganda get angry. Maybe they already got some problems already, or maybe they're from the Middle East. And occasionally we hear about a synagogue just being shot up, or a school for Jewish children and little kids being killed. We've seen that sort of thing over the years. Okay, so they just blowed up the people planning the stuff. Is what they did. Now, this is YNet News. I pulled this off yesterday. This is Words into Action. This is the title of this headline. Russia bolsters presence along the Syrian border. So this is an analysis. The analysis is following Moscow's condemnation of Israel's actions against Iranian positions in Syria amid the war in Gaza. Russia air forces initiate patrols along the northern border. So they're on the northern border of Israel, protecting the people that are arranging the attacks against Israel. That's what they're doing. And calling themselves policemen. Last week, a Russian helicopter flying near the ceasefire line in Syria territory was seen from the Golan Heights, and the Russian helicopter flew along the line for several minutes, then turned back eastward deep into Syria. The Israeli Air Force tracked the helicopter, providing alerts to IDF forces and the military's air defense batteries in the area. However, since the helicopter didn't cross the ceasefire line into Israel's territory near the Golan Heights, no further action was needed. So this is The Guardian. Pulled this off the internet yesterday. Iran's Supreme National Security Council has decided on a required response to the Israeli strike on Damascus on Monday night that killed 3 top commanders in Iran's Al-Quds force and 4 officers and 4 other officers, state TV has reported. No further details were provided about the meeting of key decision-making body, the key decision-making body. That's what they were, a key decision-making body that was blown up. But the president, Ibrahim Raisi, who chaired the meeting, said Iran would retaliate at the time of its choosing. The standard formulation used by the Iranian regime when faced by such setbacks. So they're saying we're going to attack Israel at a time of our choosing. This is another part of a statement that was made. I didn't have room for all of it in this section, but it says the Zionist regime has put blind assassinations on its agenda in the struggle to save itself. And Razi said on his office website. Now just listen to what he's saying. They're trying to save it themselves, so they're assassinating our generals. He can't hear himself saying that they plan on destroying them. And so they're trying to save themselves by killing our generals that are planning their destruction. That's what he put out there for everybody to hear. The Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Al-Khamenei, who has final say on all matters of state in Iran, also vowed revenge, saying, "We will make them regretful about the crime and similar acts." Tehran now faces a strategic question of how harshly to respond. An analyst said, conflict has rippled across the Middle East since the onset of the Gaza war, but until now, Iran has carefully avoided direct conflict with Israel while backing allies attacking Israeli and U.S. targets. So they're just saying they're attacking Israel and U.S. targets, but they haven't got directly involved. They're using proxies. That's all they're saying. But he's saying now, because you attacked and killed our generals, we're going to attack Israel. That's what he's saying. Okay? So we see that Psalms 83 growing into something else, and all the players are there on the border of Israel. All the players in the Magog War have been brought up. You know, what is Russia doing there? Why is Russia on the border of Israel? I'm telling you, they're there because the Bible said he was going to put a hook in their jaw and bring them there. Okay? Now, there's something that's going to trigger it. Now, this is Bloomberg. This is what Bloomberg, I pulled this off their website. The title of this article was, "Terrorist Threat to the U.S. has reached a whole other level." This guy, Ray, is head of the FBI. And now he's saying that the threat level to the United States has been raised to a whole new level. See, because of our support of Israel. So, and you know, it's true. A bunch of our enemies have ran in through that border. That's true. But there's worse ones flying in on airports with passports. You don't think that there's operatives coming in the normal way, preparing and planning as terrorist cells? So this is what Ray said. Ray warns of increased terrorist threat, says U.S. in a dangerous period. We're in a dangerous period. The U.S. is in a dangerous period. So the FBI Director Christopher Wray said Tuesday the war between Israel and Hamas has led to a spike in threats against the United States, warning that we are in a dangerous period as various terrorist groups look to leverage the conflict for their own causes. The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole other level. Ray said in testimony before the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. So this is what the head of the FBI is saying, that they're, you know, they're listening to the cell phones, the Patriot Act and all that. They can listen to everything that's going on, and they're hearing chatter about threats to America. That's what they're hearing. So let's get to Ezekiel's property. Ezekiel's prophecy. This is a plan to seize the resource of Israel. I guess, I don't know, maybe that's the reason most wars happen. But what would bring Russia into it? I mean, we know why the Muslims are into it, because their beliefs are that their Mahdi won't come until there's a war with Israel. Okay, we know why they're in it, but why is Russia there? Okay, well, the Bible says that it's the resources of Israel. So in Ezekiel 38, verse 7, he says, "Be prepared and get yourself ready. You and your whole assembly that has been mobilized around you, you will be their guard." He's speaking to Gog still, because Gog is lifted up with pride. It says, "After a long time you will be summoned." So this is, at the time of this writing, the Lord is saying this prophecy is for a long time in the future, and after a long time passes, after David penned this, he says, "I'm going to summon you, Gog. I'm going to call for you to come against the northern border of Israel." So after a long time, you will be summoned in the last years. These are the last days that God comes down. against Israel. And you will enter a land that has been restored from war and regathered from many peoples. And he's talking about the nation of Israel coming back, to the people coming from all over to form the nation of Israel. They've been regathered from many peoples to the mountains of Israel. So just this prophecy's already happened. They've been regathered, which have a long time been in ruin. I don't know if I even saw a video one time where the enemies of Israel literally hauled giant stones into the land of Israel and just set them everywhere so that they'd be in the way. Just bringing stuff in to keep them from being able to build and just to be a hindrance to them ever coming back. And so it says that they've been regathered, that it's been a long time in ruin, and they were brought forth from the peoples, and all of them now living securely. So Israel was secure. I mean, we had tourists going there, flying there from here for a while, and then suddenly they got caught. You couldn't get out because of the war. Okay? So it says, you and all your troops and many peoples with you will advance, coming like a thunderstorm, and you will be like a cloud covering the land. So they're bringing a mighty army against this tiny nation. And this is where the Lord begins to speak about what's going to happen. And that's why I told you this prophecy cannot be fulfilled without supernatural events happening in the world. So he says, on that day, thoughts will arise in your mind, and you will devise an evil plan. You will say, I will advance against the land of open villages, because that's what we see happen. You got these little places, these communities, neighborhoods that the Jews live, and I will advance against the land of open villages, and I will come against a tranquil people who are living securely, all of them living without walls and without bars or gates. And he says, in order to seize a spoil. So there it is right there. They're coming in to seize a spoil and carry off plunder, and to turn the land, to turn your hand against ruins now inhabited, and against the people gathered from the nations, and have been acquiring cattle and possessions, and live in the center of the world. Jerusalem is the center of the world. And it says, Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish with all its rulers will ask you, have you come to seize the spoil? Have you mobilized your assembly to carry off plunder, to make off with silver and the gold, and to take cattle and possessions, and to seize plenty of spoil? So people will begin to wonder their motives, their involved, Gog's involvement in this war. Now Gog, the prince of Russia, we're going to see what the message is to him. It says, therefore, prophesy, son of man, and say to Gog, this is what the Lord God says, on that day when my people Israel are dwelling securely, will you not know this? And come from your place in the remotest part of the north? And that's where they are right now. The Golan is the remotest part of the north. The Golan Heights is. It says, and you'll come to this place, the remotest part of the north, and many peoples with you, all riding on horses, and huge assembly and a powerful army. He's asking the question, will you not do this? Okay? And you will advance against my people Israel like a cloud covering the land. It will happen in the last days that I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I demonstrate my holiness through you in their sight. So he's saying he's going to act. And this is what the Lord says. Are you the one I spoke about in former times through my servants? So he's saying this to Gog. He says a long time from now, I'm going to summon you. We saw that on the last slide. And he says, aren't you the one? The scriptures are speaking to him. Aren't you the one that I spoke about through my servants, the prophets? Who for years prophesied in those times that I would bring you against them. So he's saying the day would come and it would be right there in the scriptures for everyone to see. Now on that day, the day when Gog comes against the land of Israel, this is the declaration of the Lord, my wrath will flare up. He's saying, I'm going to begin to feel my anger against you. And this is the day the invasion begins in verse 19. In my fiery anger, I tell you this, on that day there will be a large earthquake in the land of Israel. That seems kind of funny, that there would be an earthquake in the land of Israel when God came against Israel. But it's kind of like an invitation. They got this giant disaster in Israel. Now's the time to go. And you think about it from God's perspective. God is saying, I want it to look like Israel can't help themselves when I step up and help them. Because it's going to be a day of miracles. And so he's saying that there's going to be a large earthquake in the land of Israel. And fish and birds and wild animals and everything that crawls on the ground and every person on the earth will tremble in my presence. And the mountains will be torn down and the cliffs crumble and every wall will fall to the ground. So this is a giant disaster in Israel. And I will declare war against Gog. So now it's the Lord that's declaring the war against Gog on all my mountains. So Israel's just kind of helpless with this big disaster. And then Gog steps up to deal with the war. I will declare war against Gog on all my mountains, declare the Almighty Lord. Each person will use his sword against his relative. Now that kind of speaks of that friendly fire business, about the confusion of the armies, and how that it's happened before in the Bible, where a great company comes against Israel and they end up fighting each other in confusion. God causes that to happen, the friendly fire. So he says, I will punish Gog with plagues and death. So plagues and death began to break out right there in their armies. And I will send rainstorms of large hailstones and fire burning with sulfur on his troops. This is a Sodom and Gomorrah moment, y'all. That's what's going to happen to the armies that come against Israel on that northern border to invade it. Hailstones will take it apart. Not just hailstones, but sulfur. Just like Sodom and Gomorrah. It will be a big black smoking hole on his troops and the many armies that have came with him. And I will show my greatness and my holiness. I will reveal myself to many nations, and they will know that I am the Lord. So this is what the Lord is saying that He's going to do on that day that they come. So this is the end of the invading armies. This is chapter 39, verse 1 through 5. It says, As for you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, This is what the Lord God says. Look, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will turn you around and drive you on and lead you up from the remotest parts of the north, and I will bring you against the mountains of Israel. This is the Golan Heights. And then I will knock your bow from your left hand and make your arrows to drop from your right hand, and you and all your troops and the people who are with you will fall on the mountains of Israel. And I will give you as food to every kind of predatory bird and wild animal. And you will fall on the open field, for I have spoken. This is the declaration of God, the Lord God. And so what we see is a big disaster happens in Israel. And Gog says, now's the time. They got their hands full. And they push against Israel. And God Himself destroys all the invading armies. God Himself destroys them. And so He says in verse 6, I will send fire against Magog and those who live securely on the coast and islands. So He's reaching out to those other enemies. And they will know that I am the Lord. That they will also be affected by the Lord's rain of hailstones and fire. And He says, so I will make my holy name known among the people, among my people Israel, and will no longer allow it to be profaned. He's saying that this is going to bring about a change, this war is. Then the nations will know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. Yes, it is coming, and it will happen. This is the declaration of the Lord God. This is the day I have spoken about. Then the inhabitants of Israel's cities will go out and kindle fires and burn the weapons, the small and large shields and bows and arrows and the clubs and spears. For 7 years they will use them to make fires. So from this time of the Magog War till 7 years later, it's going to take how long to clean up the mess that God left on the mountains from the destruction of the armies. It'll take 7 years to clean it up. In verse 10, on the day the Lord displays His glory, it says, they will not gather wood from the countryside or cut it down from the forest. They will use the weapons to make fires. They will take the loot from those who looted them and plundered those who plundered them. This is the declaration of the Lord. So whatever is good, whatever is usable, they will claim it and know. Now on that day, I will give Gog a burial place there in Israel. The travelers, valley east of the sea, it will block those who travel through. For Gog and all his hordes will be buried there. So it will be called the hordes of the Gog Valley. And the house of Israel will spend 7 months burying them in order to cleanse the land. So 7 months to bury the dead, 7 years to clean it up. The people of the land will bury them, and their fame will spread on the day I display my glory. This is the declaration of the Lord God. They will appoint men on a full-time basis to pass through the land and bury the invaders who remain on the surface of the ground in order to cleanse it. They will make their search at the end of 7 months, looking for any bones or body parts that are left to clean up, to bury the dead. Verse 15, this is the Lord's declaration. When they pass through the land and one of them sees a human bone, he will set up a marker next to it until the buriers have buried it in the hordes of Gog Valley. They will even be a city named Hamona there, so they will cleanse the land. Son of man, this is what the Lord God says. Tell every kind of bird and all the wild animals, assemble and come, gather from all around to my sacrificial feast that I am slaughtering for you, a great feast on the mountains of Israel. You will eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of mighty men and drink the blood of earth's princes. Rams, lambs, male goats, and all fattened bulls of Bashan. You will eat fat until you are satisfied and drink blood until you are drunk at my sacrificial feast that I have prepared for you. At my table you will eat your fill of horses and riders and mighty men and all the warriors. That is the declaration of the Lord God. So he's talking about as usual, there's a job for buzzards after a situation like this, and that he's calling for the birds to come and to feast upon the dead. Well, that's all I'm going to share with you today about this Magog war. I'll turn it back over to Brother in charge.
Thank you, Brother David. I enjoyed that study.